Hello everyone, this is Greg Giglio, principal of Homestead High School, and I have my weekly video. I am coming to you from our dance classroom, and maybe some of you didn't know we had a dance classroom, but we actually have a studio in here. This is over by the pool, and we do use it for our dance classes and for equestria dance rehearsals, and other groups use it at times too. So I thought I would show you a place that maybe not very many of you get to. So again, we're going to do our message for the week here. So let me get that going. So again, this is for Friday, December 4th. Can you believe it? We're already at December. And actually, after today, Friday is done, we're going to have 2 more weeks of the semester left. Definitely flying by us. So here we go. Again, I get my questions and information from the weekly survey that I send out. This was probably our lowest number. Maybe it was because of the holiday over the time there, but I only got 5 responses. And we still had a low score of 1 and a high score of 10, and we averaged out to 5. Go figure when you get those numbers. And again, you can see what our previous numbers have been. It's sort of been anywhere from 5 to 7.05. And again, when looking at sort of the positives and negatives, why people marked as high or low, it really did come down to what people think about remote learning and how school is addressing the needs of students during remote learning. So those people who thought we were matching their needs and addressing their needs scored as higher. Those who thought we weren't marked as lower. But I'm going to jump into some questions that came up because there's some really good ones. Oh, but before I do that, there were some people who threw some roses out there for a few of our teachers. Now, if you mention a teacher or staff member by name, I will throw them out here and put it and show them the rose that you sent them. So this one was from Mr. Burrows, who was a math teacher, and it was he, and actually Mrs. Murray also did the same thing for their AP Calc students. They were doing binder checks, and they had students come one by one through the school to have these quick appointments so they could check in on them, and the parent was very appreciative of that. There was also a shout out for Mr. Lavelle, who is one of our veteran English teachers, and they talked about how they thought how he was assigning interesting and engaging lessons. So they wanted to thank him for that. And then also a shout out to Dr. Jeff Morton, who was our choir director for the district concert. He said it was fun and exciting. So thank you to all of those and everybody else and our staff who's doing some really amazing work. First question here is, what is the high school administration going to be doing differently in the school year based on these surveys that I've been talking about and looking at? And so, what I do want to point out again is that, and I think I've said this many times, that this isn't really a scientific representation of our population. We do get a small number of people coming in, and what we do see is sort of, a lot of varying or splitting of results and experiences. One person likes remote learning, another person doesn't like remote learning. Some people think the workload is just right, other people think it's too hard. So there's really nothing that I'm going to come out and say, we have to get rid of this or we have to keep doing that. But what it does is when you start to get, repeated things in here, it does cause us to allow us to have conversation. So I bring a lot of this information to the meetings that I go to. I go to meetings at the district level, at our site level, within departments, with individual teachers. So there's a lot of things that I can bring to them and say, what I'm hearing from parents, what I'm hearing from students is this. And so one complaint I hear is that, or one benefit I hear is this. And so it allows us to really start to use some anecdotal information to start making some decisions. And we have been, using the information that I get from you or the feedback I get from you. I brought it up in the subject of homework. I brought it up in workload and stress. So we really have had a chance to bring in your voices to, start to encourage teachers to look at things that they're doing, encourage staff members to try different approaches to things. So again, I can't say that this, survey caused this to change, but it's sort of a series of dominoes in a line. And one of the big other issues is I've been using this as a pipeline to send issues directly to our Schoology folks to see if there's things that we can work on or learn from and improve from. And so that has been an area too. I've also used it to help problem solve some individual ideas or issues or concerns that are going on out there. So again, I wouldn't say that this survey is being used as an end-all be-all. It is meant to sort of give me a flavor or a snapshot, and I take trends and I use those in conversations that I have. Hope that kind of explains it a little bit more. This person had saw the ad or the notice we had in the bulletin about a meeting for Black parents, and wondering why are you having one for just one specific group, or where are the meetings for the other specific groups, or why don't we have one inclusive kind of meeting? And so let me kind of try and step up and explain what we're doing here. So this parent was sort of half right. There are going to be other meetings that start to come up. We are going to look at having meetings with a variety of groups of parents out there. So that is something that we're going to be doing. We did start working with our staff and our students first. We wanted to make sure that we were getting a lot of the work done in terms of anti-racism, in terms of some of the social issues that are out there. What we learned in those town halls that students were experiencing, or former students had experienced when they were on our campuses, we wanted time to correct those. And so we do think now it's time to start bringing some of our parents in to help us make Homestead a better place for everybody. And so, what is quite true and obvious is that different groups of people on our campus have different experiences. Just like in this survey, there are some people that really like what's going on at Homestead. There are some people that hate what's going on at Homestead. And so that is true when you start to break things down by racial lines as well too. And so what we've trying to do is actually have a group come together that maybe feels more comfortable together to discuss some of these issues and give us some feedback so that we can start to help them or help their students, and in turn help everybody here at Homestead. Because again, one of the key issues with parent involvement is that data is very clear with all the educational research out there that the more involved, the more comfort level that parents have in coming to schools and asking questions and getting help or communicating, the better their students are going to do. Doesn't mean every student's going to get an A, but it does mean that their students are going to feel connected because they feel connected. So that's what we're trying to do. So we are trying to build up some information among the smaller groups so that we can take that to make it a more inclusive kind of place. And eventually, we would like to get to that spot where we can have an all-call meeting that says, and we have a representation of all the groups at our high school. We don't have that right now. When we tend to have bigger meetings, we tend to have a representation of the same parents. It's usually our white parents and our Asian parents, and we don't have as many Latino or Black parents that show up to those. So we definitely are trying to figure out ways that we can make sure parents are feeling included, they feel welcome when coming to our campus. So the goal is eventually to get to that all-inclusive kind of meeting, but we know that there's some work that needs to be done with the individual groups. So we're not going to leave anybody out. It may take us a while to get through all those groups, so we're definitely going to be talking to groups and getting feedback as we go along. Oops, I went the wrong way. That's where I want to go. So there was a question, really more a statement, saying it would be helpful for teachers to offer extra credit or project opportunities for those who want to improve their grades. And I don't disagree necessarily with this statement. It's one of the things we really are looking at right now as we're heading towards the end of our semester. As I said, 2 more weeks left, so this gets to be crunch time for a lot of students who kind of finally say, oh my gosh, I need to do more to raise my grade. Or, boy, I really struggled in the beginning, but I'm starting to get it now. I just need a little more time. So there are a lot of ways that teachers are giving things that may, what you would consider extra credit, but doing it in different ways. Again, whether they're revising papers or projects or tests, whether they're retaking a test that maybe a student didn't do well on. Chances to redeem your grade, enrichment, intervention. These are a bunch of names that are out there for things like extra credit. There is a dilemma though for teachers when wanting to try and give extra credit. And a lot of times, what it feels like is sometimes a student may not do the work and then they want extra credit to try and boost their grade. And so really what teachers are looking for is the students to do the work that's first assigned. So a lot of times they might go back to those assignments that they wanted students to be able to do and know and do so they can master the subject before they go off and do something extra or bigger or different. And again, sometimes too, just the idea of, I want something that's going to boost my grade. This is always that fight in education about grade and learning, right? A grade shows that you've mastered the subject, but have you truly learned it? And so again, there are some teachers who are going to have a wide variety of opinions about the kinds of enrichment or opportunities that they are going to give out there. They may call it extra credit. They may also say, I need you to retake these tests, or if you scored under this percentage, you can resubmit this paper for more credit, that kind of stuff. So there could be a variety of ways. Again, I would just definitely ask your teacher what that might be. So this is something that we definitely are encouraging. It's definitely something we're hearing that students would like to see. It may not come across as a straight extra credit project though, so please be aware of that. That does bring us to this topic of Opportunity Week, which we brought up last time, but I want to talk about again because I hear there's still some questions out there. One of the things, again, if I go back to the earlier question about what are some of the things that administration is doing differently, we are instituting across the district this idea of Opportunity Week. Oops, I keep going the wrong way. That's the way I want to go. This is what we're calling Opportunity Week, which traditionally is called Finals Week, but we've built it in this way that teachers may be giving a final, they may be doing other projects or enrichments during the class, but there's also time built into the end of the day where there may be opportunities for students to fix their grade, to get a little bit more time to finish something that they didn't finish before. And again, as you see the description down there, it is a flexible, non-mandatory period, but teachers might be contacting students saying, hey, you know what, you're almost ready to pass this class. I just need you to resubmit this paper. Or, hey, you never took this quiz or test, and I think it would help you out, so let's take this quiz or test. Not every student is gonna need it. Not every teacher is probably gonna need to offer it as well either, but it is one of those things that in the next 2 weeks, you should be talking to your teacher saying, are there chances for me during the enrichment period or during the traditional finals portion of the test, or the week, that I might be able to redeem part of my grade? So again, that's a good thing to ask for. And again, the enrichment period there isn't a place you have to show up unless the teacher invites you, or it could be asynchronous work. It could be a one-on-one meeting with the teacher. It could just be another chance to go in and finish a test. Again, this is where you have to have that conversation with the teacher to find out what's going on. And I wouldn't wait until Sunday, December 13th to have that conversation. You probably should be having that conversation tonight or soon. So again, if you need some help facilitating those conversations, I'm happy to do that. But reach out to your teachers. They are aware of this schedule. They're aware of the idea of wanting to help students redeem what's been a really tough semester. So hopefully you can take advantage of that and get a chance to, again, like the question before said, get a chance to help you do a little bit better than you may have done in the beginning of the semester. I want to spend the last little bit of time here talking about some of the restrictions that just came through, because we made a giant U-turn in the last week here in regards to where we are and where we're going with remote learning. As you know, the county came out over the weekend and said, we are shutting things down. We are really concerned about the numbers out there. They saw a huge number of spike in the numbers of COVID cases. And this was not including what they're anticipating from the Thanksgiving travel that was out there. They have seen after all these holidays or 3-day weekends, that kind of thing, where people travel and get together, they see spikes in positive cases of coronavirus. So this was happening before the travel was going on. So they said, we need to kind of slow things down to make sure that we're not overrunning our hospitals. So that's where this sudden change came from. You would see this restriction that just popped up, which we weren't aware of until that weekend, was that people who traveled over 150 miles during that Thanksgiving time are going to be asked to quarantine. Now, there's a very specific timeline and deadline. If you returned after midnight on November 29th, you must quarantine for 14 days. So we have people here on our site that are either teaching remotely or come in that have now had to quarantine because they traveled down to LA to see family, or maybe they got on a plane to go see their children in Utah or whatever. Those restrictions weren't in place when they made those decisions, as they weren't in place when you made your decisions, but now they're having to sort of deal with the restrictions. If you came in before midnight on the 29th, you actually are okay. You don't have to quarantine, but it is considered something you should strongly consider, and think about it in terms of the riskiness of the activities that you did. If you got on a plane and you were around a lot of people in airports and inside of an airplane where you could have come in contact with somebody, so that might be riskier than getting in the car and driving by yourself down to Los Angeles to go see your brother, and you the only two that hung out together, right? So those are things you really need to look at. And if you had more risky or type of behavior, you might want to consider quarantining for the safety of yourself and others. So again, might be something for you to consider, and that's something that our staff has had to consider as well. What is not being stopped during these COVID restrictions, tighter restrictions, are food service and our material distributions, which always happen on the Wednesday. So those will still happen. The times are still the same, so we hope to still see you coming through to pick up materials or to get the food that you need for the week. I took these couple of bullet points directly from the email that just came out the other day regarding these restrictions. But again, the Fremont Union High School District are in remote learning for the first 6 weeks. That nothing changed in that regard. It hasn't extended it, hasn't shortened it. It's still there. We will reassess as we get closer to that end of that 6 weeks. But what did start to change were things like sports and other student activities, including any of the preseason conditioning that some of our sports and our clubs were doing. Those have to end, and the start of practices has also had to end. If you're a 49ers fan, you know that the 49ers can't even play. They're going to Arizona to play their football games. We don't have that luxury. So our football season, some of other sports have been pushed off for a couple of weeks. That they're still waiting for the state to come in and tell us whether that's going to be canceled for the year or whether they're just pushing it to later on in the year. So that's something we still are waiting to hear, waiting to get some feedback from the CIF, which is our state athletics foundation. And then again, what we had been planning to do this week was really start bringing back some small groups of kids, groups of 5 to 10, maybe, or even smaller than that, for some support and some services. And also as a chance to try and redeem their grades if they have been struggling. We've had to stop that. And so we are really going back to the drawing board in terms of some of the interventions. And that's something, though, that we're going to be looking at possibly in second semester, how to bring those kids back safely to campus so that we're keeping them safe, we're keeping ourselves safe. And what we had done in the meantime, leading up to this time, which again made it hard to say we can't do any of it right now, is that we had really adopted some new safety protocols. And so there are things like, wherever you go, if you're on our campus, you have to be wearing a mask, and it's a specific kind of mask in terms of it's fitted over your face. It has 2 layers. It's got a filter, could have a filter. We don't want people walking around with bandanas or 1 layer of cloth, because that really doesn't do anything. And so we really are specifying the types of masks that are out there. For anyone who comes on campus, they're going to have to do a questionnaire that talks about their health at that time. Like when you go to the dentist and they ask you all those questions, we have to ask the same kinds of questions. If you're in that kind of a pod, you would be met at the gate by your teacher. There's only going to be 1 way in and 1 way out. Obviously, if there's an emergency, there's more than 1 way out, but to kind of keep the flow of traffic going so that people aren't, mixing and mingling, we're going to have 1 way in and 1 way out. You'll be escorted by the teacher. Students, when they're in a classroom or whatever area they're in, they're going to be socially distanced. They're going to be wearing masks. They have to use a specific restroom depending on where they are on campus. That allows us to understand where they are and what rooms need to be cleaned. It helps us in that regard too. So we're also going to be making sure that kids aren't congregating before, after, during. They have to kind of be separate. It's going to be a little strict while they're here on campus, but again, that's for everyone's safety. And then of course, what this leads to is these new deep cleaning strategies that we have for any areas that were used, whether it was a classroom or whether it was a restroom or lunch line, that kind of thing. We're going to have to look at those things. So we were going to be implementing some deeper cleaning. So when we start to bring kids back, this will still be in place. It's in place now. It's just not going to be used as much since we aren't allowed to bring students back on campus. What also part of our protocols is what happens if someone gets sick while they're here on campus. Again, sometimes what happens with coronavirus is that someone might be feeling fine, and when they wake up and a couple hours later, all of a sudden they've got a headache and they lost their sense of smell and they're achy, and it's like, uh-oh, what do we do now? So we definitely have a system, and this is also based on what the county is asking us to do, where we would be providing an isolation room, which I know sounds a little draconian, but really it's a place where we can move a kid to where there won't be any other interaction with other people. We can observe them, we can see what's going on. They won't necessarily, like the adult that's going to be with them won't be in the room with them, because obviously that would be problematic, but there's enough windows and things that we can see how they're doing. There's outside access, so parents can pick up easy. We would so we take the student to the isolation room. We call the parents to have them come pick their student up. We wouldn't send them home on their own or on a bus, that kind of thing. Obviously that wouldn't be safe either. So parent would have to come pick them up. We would actually, excuse the pod or the cohort until further notice. Even if other people weren't feeling sick, again, out of abundance of safety, we would need to send them home. There would be instructions that would follow home from emails that we'd be sending out to you, and there would be a deep cleaning of those areas that were affected. And again, notifications would be sent out they wouldn't be naming like this person has coronavirus. It's, your student may have been exposed to someone who showed symptoms, or this was in a pod with a student who eventually tested positive for COVID. You'll start to get those notices as they come out. So I just kind of wanted you to be aware of some of those that we've been working on, so that when we do come back having even small groups of kids, we will be able to keep you and your students as safe as possible. Last slide of our presentation here, again, is our important information. And again, we're getting down to the end of the semester here, so not much going on. But again, if you're looking for some fun stuff to do, as of today, you'll be able to find the streaming version of our fall play, which is called 10 Ways to Survive Life in Quarantine. And so again, hope you get a chance to see some of our students in action. If you go to our weekly bulletin, you'll see the link in there for that. So you can definitely jump on that and check it out. Even though season 1 of sports is on hold for right now, we still need to get those physicals and concussion testing due. And so we need those in so we can get the paperwork going should the season start. So that due date is the 11th of December. So that's coming up. That's 1 week away. So hopefully you can get those taken care of. Again, as I mentioned before, the week of 12-14 is going to be opportunity week. There are tests on Monday, Tuesday, we're not tests, but we're in school those days, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Friday is a day off for the students and begins your break. And it is a work day for staff though. Those of you who are looking to keep your reading going, the 14th is the last day to put a book on hold at the Homestead Library for until after the break, and the 16th will be the last day that you can actually come in and pick it up. So if you were looking to get a little reading over the break here, you might want to get it in by the 14th. And then just so you know, school will be closed through the 18th through the 6th. Again, on the 18th we are here. It's going to be a very light crew. We're getting things ready to be closed for a couple weeks, but we will be here if you need anything. Obviously, if you have email or concerns, you can email us, but do expect that we are on holiday, so we may not be immediately available for consultation, but we will try to get back to you as quickly as we can. And so we will be hopefully enjoying a holiday break just like you are. That is our show for today. So again, hope you enjoyed your tour of the dance studio here, and if you ever get a chance to be here, there's me in reverse. If you ever get a chance to come by, hope you get a chance to see some of our dancers in action. Anyway, hope you guys have a great rest of the weekend, and we'll talk to you next week.